What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. And this one is my team selection for Game Week 24. I've got 4 free transfers and I've already used 2 of them. So I'll talk through what moves I've made, what moves I'm thinking about, and I'll quickly show you how I did in Game Week 23 as well. So I scored 65 points, which was enough for a small green arrow. I think I went up like 10,000 places to 191k, so I can't complain too much. But I have been asking myself on and off all week, why didn't I just buy Gakpo? It was such an obvious move. I would have used 1 transfer, had a decent 11, 5 free transfers going into Game Week 24. It was such a strong position to be in, and I turned it down and bought Calvert-Lewin and Van Dijk instead. Now, there is a little bit of outcome bias there. If Calvert-Lewin hadn't got injured and Van Dijk hadn't lost the clean sheet in the 90th minute, it wouldn't have looked so bad. But I do think it was a mistake not just to go for the 1 transfer route, get that upside for Ipswich. And look, I've turned down Liverpool attackers in the past, like Diaz at the start of the season, absolutely smashing it, and I ignored him because I didn't trust his minutes. And at the time, I think that was the right call, even though I was down on quite a few points. This time, though, Jota's injured. Nunez is not favoured by Slot at the moment. Gakpo's minutes are good, and so I still didn't go for it. And I watched the team selection video back yesterday from Game Week 23, and I was trying to talk myself out with the Gakpo move, and I couldn't find a good reason not to do it. And yet I still ended up not making that transfer. And to make it worse, because I missed the Solanke price drop, I sold Munoz instead of Anderson. Like, all around, it was just a bad decision because, yes, Crystal Palace might blank in Game Week 29, but the fixtures are good before it. I may end up free hitting in 29. I don't know what my chip strategy is right now. The cup results will change it. So I'm going to put this one down as a big mistake, but I still got a green arrow, and I'm still in a fairly strong position with how the team is set up. Just to quickly go through where the other points came from. Captain Salah for 8 points into 16. In Burmo has been amazing for me. And the thing I like about having held on to him and getting points along the way is people are going to be bringing him in this week. So in some ways, I'm at least a transfer ahead on him. Double clean sheet for Arsenal, Raya and Gabriel. Yes, they hadn't kept clean sheets for 4 games before that, but Wolves away was a pretty decent fixture, although Arsenal did go down to 10 men. I was a little bit worried when I'd heard that. Isak, 2 returns. Trent obviously got the assist. Everyone else blanked. Rodgers, João Pedro again blanked. Calvert-Lewin on my bench went off early. Eze Palmer. Like, all in all, it didn't feel like a green arrow week because I didn't make that Gakpo transfer. Had I done that, by the way, because I would have kept Munoz, I would have had an extra 17 points. 82 points I would have scored. So that's why it doesn't feel like small green arrow. It happens, right? You've got to be happy when you get a green arrow, no matter how big it is. But it feels like a red arrow because it could have been so much better. But it is what it is. It's done now. Can't dwell on it too much, although I probably will right up until the deadline. Let's talk about Game Week 24. So as I mentioned earlier, I had 4 free transfers going into this week. I've used 2 of them and I've got 2 left over plus 0.9 million in the bank. One of the moves that I've already made is Raya to Pickford, which I did before Pickford went up in price. Interestingly, last night in the Champions League, Raya wasn't in the squad for Arsenal. Arteta said that he was unavailable. I'll be very surprised if Raya is not in that 11 against Man City at the weekend, but that was not part of the reason that I made the move. I'd already done it. And if I had Raya, I probably wouldn't be panicking all that much. But if you're on the fence about making a move, I guess if Arteta isn't positive about him in the press conference, maybe it's just worth moving him out for a double game week goalkeeper. With Pickford, I just like the Leicester fixture. I see the Liverpool one as a bonus game where maybe he can get some save points. The fixtures afterwards are pretty good. He definitely plays in 29 against West Ham, although for what it's worth, Raya will almost certainly play in 29 as well, because I don't see Arsenal overturning the Carabao Cup semi-final against Newcastle. But all round, Pickford's a decent option. It freed up some money. I'm happy enough with that. In my defence, I've still got Van Dijk and Trent double up on Liverpool. I mentioned on Sunday's video that potentially I could sell Van Dijk to free up a spot for Gakpo, and a lot of people were quite positive about that move in the comments. But when I thought about it a bit more, yes, maybe I made a mistake last week by not getting Gakpo, but I can't dwell on that for future decisions. I've got to manage my team as it is. And if any of you said to me, I've got Trent, Salah and Van Dijk, should I use 2 transfers to switch Van Dijk to Gakpo? I'd almost certainly say no, pretty much every time. And so I've got to apply that same logic to my own team. I don't think it's worth using 2 transfers to switch around Liverpool players that are definitely going to play, especially when there's a blank to contend with in Game Week 29, and I might not be using a chip that week. So I need all the transfers I can get. So I'm keeping hold of Trent and Van Dijk. They both got a rest in the Champions League. I'm happy enough with them moving forward. The Wolves at home game in 25 is pretty decent as well. And then I've got Gabriel currently in the back 3, Man City at home. I find it hard to bench him. Like, I've got Greaves on the bench with Southampton at home, but I don't trust the Ipswich defence all that much. And Gabriel's goal threat is so good. I know I'm saying that the week after Greaves has literally scored against Liverpool, but I think I've got to play Gabriel if he's still in my team. For what it's worth, I'm probably going to use another transfer this week, doing Greaves or Anderson to Mykolenko from Everton and doubling up on the Everton defence. I'm probably going to sell Greaves, although Anderson would give me a bit more money to spend. The reason for that is I don't think I need the extra money, and there is a very small chance that Fulham could double in game week 25 if Spurs beat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Now, I know lots of people think that's impossible, given how the two teams are playing right now, but nothing's impossible in football. I think to have that double in 25, we'd probably need to get a provisional announcement before the game week 24 deadline. But either way, there's not enough difference for me selling Greaves or Anderson, so I might as well keep the Fulham defender rather than the Ipswich one, who may have a double in 25. So I've got 2 transfers left. I'm probably going to do Greaves to Mykolenko. If I do that, I definitely will bench Gabriel. And yes, I can already foresee it going very wrong. So I'm pretty happy with my midfield this week. Cole Palmer's got West Ham at home, which is a decent fixture. I know some people are still thinking about selling him, but personally, I think that boat's been missed. If you were going to get rid of him, it was before the Man City away game last week. They've got Southampton at home in 27, Leicester at home in 28. The idea of selling him before a good home game to then have to buy him back and using 2 transfers in the process doesn't make any sense to me, especially at a time when I'm trying to save as many transfers as possible. So Palmer is staying. There is a chance, by the way, that I'll sell him in game week 29, even if Chelsea have a fixture that week, to make a move for Haaland. But I'm going to worry about that a lot later on because things can change over the next 4 or 5 weeks. With Eze, on paper, not an amazing fixture against Man United away, but honestly, playing Man United right now is not really anything to be worried about. And the Crystal Palace fixtures afterwards are pretty good. So it's Everton at home in 25, Fulham away in 26, Villa at home in 27, then Ipswich at home in 28. So after Man United, 3 of the next 4 are at home. And yes, Crystal Palace will probably blank in 29, but I can just deal with that much closer to the time. If Eze's still fit by the time he's playing Ipswich, I'm going to hold him and I'll look to move in 29 itself. And the fact that I can save up to 5 free transfers these days makes it a lot easier to hold on to players like that. The one team that I don't have covered that a lot of people are bringing in is Bournemouth. So like Semenyo, Cliver or Utara. I probably will move for them later on, but I'm not that concerned about having them this week against Liverpool. Like Eze against Man United is just as good as those Bournemouth players against Liverpool. So he definitely stays. Salah is my captain. It's pretty simple. He's easily the best captain this week. If you want to go differential with Trent, Gakpo, Diaz, whoever it might be, maybe even an Everton player, fair enough, go ahead. But for me, it's definitely Salah. It's also going to be one of those annoying weeks for those of us that don't have triple captain, where a lot of people are going to use it. And if you don't triple captain Salah, you probably want him to blank because of how high his ownership will be. So that's annoying, but that doesn't mean I should take the armband off him. At the end of the day, he's still the player in my team I think will score the most points. So I've got to captain him, even though I'll probably be hoping that he blanks, which I know sounds weird, but just try and forget about it if you can. And then I've already got Mbeumo against Spurs at home, which looks like a really good fixture. People are bringing him in. The Brentford fixtures are decent moving forward. He's just probably going to stay in my team until at least game week 29, or unless he gets injured or something like that. Like, he plays 90 minutes every game. He's an absolutely insane FPL asset. And yes, he's overperformed quite a lot. It doesn't mean that's necessarily going to stop when the fixtures are as good as they are coming up. The player I've got on my bench is Rodgers, who scored a hat-trick in the Champions League last night. Shame he couldn't do it for me last week in the Premier League, but it is what it is. I'm not that happy about benching him against Wolves away, but I think for my attack, it makes the most sense. And then I will probably play him in game week 25 against Ipswich at home. I'll show you my future moves in a minute. Once I talk about my forwards, it's very likely I won't have Bournemouth midfielders for game week 25, which does scare me a little bit. But I think I've got to give Rodgers that Ipswich game. I've had him since game week 1, and then I will look to sell him after that. So as it stands, no transfers planned for my midfield this week. And then up front, I better talk about the second transfer that I've already made. So as well as doing Raya to Pickford on Sunday night, I also did Calvert-Lewin to Njai. This is my 15th season playing FPL, and on paper, that might be one of the most horrible transfers I've ever had to make. Like, how did I get myself into this mess? And it's not that Njai is necessarily a completely terrible option. I bought him for 5.4 million. He's on penalties with Calvert-Lewin out. Leicester at home is a good fixture. Most weeks he's going to be on my bench. But having to make that transfer just felt so horrible. And I couldn't go to Vissa. I didn't have the money to do it. If I'd just gone Raya to Pickford and Calvert-Lewin to Vissa, I could afford it. But I also want to buy Mykolenko. And so to do that move, I would have had to make a 4th transfer to free up the money for Visser. It just didn't feel worth it. And most weeks, like I say, I'm going to try and bench Njai. That might not happen, but that's the intention. So I don't think in my position it was the worst transfer to make. I just wish I wasn't in that position where I had to make it. And I know people will look at that team and say I should have just done the Van Dijk switch to Gakpo. I personally don't think that was the right call to make. I think the right call was to buy Gakpo last week, but I can't go back in time. So I've just got to manage my squad as it is. So Njai is in, and hopefully he does really well. Like even if he goes and gets me like 8 or 9 points over the 2 games, that will make me extremely happy. And that is why I'm benching Rodgers this week. I'm playing João Pedro against Forest away. Not a great fixture. And you could definitely argue that Wolves away is easier for Aston Villa. But João Pedro on penalties, I feel like I've got to play him. Like he's been massively underwhelming. He hasn't scored an open play goal since game week 12. But until I get some money to upgrade him, he's just going to have to stay in the team. And obviously I've put myself in a position where I've now got Gabriel, Van Dijk and Trent. Pickford is a 5 million goalkeeper when I bought him. There's a lot of money in my defence. I need that to come through. And if it does, the attackers won't look quite so bad. We'll have to see how it plays out. So João Pedro is staying, unfortunately, for a little while longer. He does have Southampton soon. I can't remember which week it is. Yeah, Chelsea at home in 25, then Southampton away. Then Bournemouth at home and Fulham at home. So I'm not completely... I don't mind that he's in my team is what I'm trying to say. It's not great, but at least the fixtures are somewhat decent-ish. And then Isak against Fulham at home. He is someone that I might sell ahead of game week 29 to get Haaland in. Because I don't have as much money wrapped up in Isak as some of you guys do. Like some of you would have bought him at 8.4, 8.5, and you don't want to sell him. You're just going to bench him through the blank in 29 if Newcastle beat Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. Fair enough. I may sell him, but again, that's a decision for a later week. So that's how the team looks for this week. Salah captain, definitely. I've got 3 Liverpool players, 2 Everton. I'm going to add Mykolenko, probably for Greaves, and bench Gabriel. 6 double game week players. At the very least, I've gone all in on this double. I like doing that. Hopefully it works out. Let's quickly talk about future moves as well. So with the blank coming up in game week 29 and the fact that I'm not completely sure what my chip strategy will be yet, my basic thinking at the moment is to try and keep options open as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to walk you through what the next few weeks will look like. If you want to use the My Team tool, by the way, and all the other tools that Hub have got, there is a 7-day free trial, 30% off, link in the description below as always. And also Ben Krellin's projected transfers are also in the tool now as well. So you can see for game week 25, Fulham have got a very slight chance of that double against Forest and Spurs at home, but Ben's put it down as a 20% chance. It's not that likely to actually happen, but worth keeping in mind. So for 25, my team's actually going to look pretty good, apart from the fact I don't have Bournemouth midfielders. So Pickford in goal, Palace away, double Liverpool defence against Wolves at home. Happy with that. Gabriel's got Leicester away. As I said, Arsenal's fixture's pretty good after City. Salah Palmer going nowhere. In Burmo, West Ham away. Eze Everton at home and Rodgers Ipswich at home. So although I won't have Clive at Utara or Semenyo this week in 25, Eze against Everton and Rodgers against Ipswich is fine. I'm kind of okay with going against them. If they smash it again against Liverpool and the prices start going up, I may well make an earlier move. But as it stands, I don't intend to do that. And then up front, it's Isak against City away and João Pedro against Chelsea at home with Njai on the bench against Palace away. Now, that forward line doesn't look that great, but there's not a huge amount of forwards I think I want to bring in the short term, like Chris Wood, Cunha, etc. I feel like they can all wait a little bit longer. So I'm kind of okay with that. In 25, I will have 2 free transfers. So in 26, I will have 3. And again, the team looks pretty good. Anderson, Palace at home, I would probably play instead of Van Dijk. I'm not ever worried about having to play Trent, so he would stay in against City. Gabriel's got a good fixture. This is the week where I probably get a Bournemouth midfielder because Rodgers has Chelsea at home, and I don't really want to play Njai unless I have to. So Rodgers to whoever I can afford at the time will be who I bring in. Just for now, I'm going to put in Utara because I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford the others by the time we get to game week 26, which is the only reason I might go in 25. And then the team again looks pretty good. Like in Burmo, Leicester away, Eze Fulham away, Palmer Villa away, Salah City away. I'll probably captain someone else that week, maybe. Isak Forest at home, and then João Pedro's got that Southampton game. At this point, I've still got 3 moves going into 27, or maybe even 4. And the team just continues to look pretty good. So for anyone that's like kind of wondering why I'm making the Mykolenko move, as long as I don't get a huge amount of injuries all of a sudden, the team actually looks pretty decent. and I'm going to be able to save transfers going into 29. Apart from having to make that Bournemouth midfielder change, there's not too many other players that I can see right now that are going to be essential to bring in. Like, if you consider all the players that people are talking about getting right now, it's kind of Brentford ones and Bournemouth ones. There's not really a lot of talk about other teams. So I feel like I'm in a pretty good position, despite the mistake I made last week. So I'm quite happy with how the team is set up. Yes, it doesn't look great in Game Week 24 because I don't have Gakpo. But actually, apart from that one little thing, which could end up being huge, the rest of the team looks decent. So fingers crossed we can get a bigger green arrow than last week. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to check out Hub using the link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll catch you tomorrow for the final thoughts video.